It's no surprise that video games uses real life as a form of inspiration, whether it be political problems, war, history, but also uses religion to form their story. A great example of this is God of War, which literally has God in the title. God of War uses Greek and Norse mythology, which all comes from paganism. Now, when I talk paganism, it's an umbrella term for a billion other beliefs and practices, but I'm specifically referring to Greek and Norse paganism. Most paganistic religions believe in multiple gods and goddesses. Most of them featured them in this game. And you've probably heard of Thor, Odin, Hades, Poseidon, Loki. If you've heard of these gods from Marvel movies, you have to check on your wife because she probably has a boyfriend and she's getting dicked down right now. The games started off as Greek mythology, while the newer installments has focused on Norse mythology over time. You're probably wondering, what about Kratos, the main guy? Is he the god of war? Like in the title of the game, right? No, dumbass! That's Ares! Okay, Kratos actually ends up killing Ares since he deceived him to murdering his own family, and Kratos takes his place and becomes the new god of war. So, you're not actually a dumbass. You're pretty cool. Even more if you subscribe. Kratos in the game is a Spartan warrior, or in Greek mythology, the personification of strength, and characterized as brutal and merciless, which is pretty accurate when you look at the game. He's pretty unhinged. What is not accurate, however, is that in the game, a dude called Zeus, the king of Olympus, and Olympus is the home of the gods, is Kratos' dad, and both of them got hella beef. But in Greek mythology, Kratos is the son of a different dude called Pallas, which is the god of Warcraft, like World of Warcraft. And is a titan, like Titanfall. Kratos is Zeus's enforcer, and they hella tight. Unlike the games though. And in Greek mythology, not related at all. Kratos is more of a symbolic figure in the mythology. It doesn't play a big role like he does in the game. There's also games that just simply take inspiration from paganism, like the Elder Scrolls Skyrim. Skyrim have their own religions, their own religious places, and even their own conflicts. One of the religions of Skyrim is called the Nordic Pantheon, with their own deities and their own gods, and these gods are part of something called the Nine Divines. It goes deep. There's so many conflicts in the world of Skyrim. One of them being about Akatosh, the god of time, which is a part of the Nine Divines, and Elduin, one of the deities, are the same being. So the one side thinks that they're the same being, the other side thinks they're two separate things. I hate to be this guy, but this can be compared to the Holy Trinity in Christianity. I'm sorry. Some people think that Jesus Christ and the Holy Father is the same being. Other people disagree with that. I know it's a bit goofy to compare a made-up religion to a real one, but it's interesting to see how religion has an influence in other media. Bioshock is another one. Bioshock is known for its thoughtful storyline, and the reason might be is because the first Bioshock games took inspiration from the book Atlas Shrugged. You might know that if you watch my video game is a waste of time video. I had to plug it, guys, come on. And also takes inspiration from objectivism. Now, objectivism isn't a religion, it's more of a life philosophy. Now, to explain objectivism could take hours, and my ass ain't getting paid for this shit, so I'll only look at one of the most important things about it. Now, let's start with egoism. According to objectivist philosophy, a person should only do their egoistic desires. Being caring is perhaps the worst thing you could do according to this philosophy. Now, what does that have to do with Bioshock? Well, first off, the main antagonist is Andrew Ryan, who's heavily based on the author and founder of objectivism, Ayn Rand. Bioshock throughout the game tries to show the chaotic nature of human beings and why it's not a good idea to live in a society based on egoism. The second Bioshock game I want to look at is Bioshock Infinite, which instead focuses on a different theme entirely. American exceptionalism. Hell yeah! What that is in simple terms is believing the United States is the most unique and most superior country on Earth.
goddamn is.
What also comes with American exceptionalism is Christianity. Specifically, there's a quite an interesting scene about the Christian tradition of baptism. Now, in Christianity, baptism is the tradition of pouring or sprinkling water, reasons for like removing original sin, becoming a part of a church, or just showing others you're symbolically a child of Christ. One particular part of the game, you're on your way to the city, but before you can do that, you have to come across a church.
Prayed for our deliverance, it would have been enough. If the prophet had only prayed for our deliverance.
Here you see a bunch of believers praying and hear a preacher preaching. However, you just want to get into the city. But before you can get into the city of Columbia,
Brother, the only way to Columbia is through rebirth in the sweet waters of baptism. Will you be cleansed, brother?
he wants you to be baptized. You eventually accept since you really don't have a choice. He preaches more
Baptize you in the name of our prophet, in the name of our founders, and the
and
name
baptizes you. He thinks that you don't seem cleansed enough, so he does it again.
brothers and sisters, but this one doesn't look clean to me.
And the scene fades to black. The scene you just saw sparked a bit of conflict and a little controversy, where some people saw this for mocking Christianity and saw it as disrespectful. There was even a player, and I mean as in like one player, who refunded it because he believes that the baptism scene was seen as extreme blasphemy for Christianity. Quote, "I cannot play it because at the very beginning of the game, there's a section of the game that is so offensive to my religious beliefs that I cannot proceed with it any further," end quote. There were others who saw this as being forced to being baptized, so they were forcing Christianity on their players. Bro, it's a game. It's a video game. Ken Levine, the lead developer of Bioshock Infinite, made some revisions to the scene to make the theme more about forgiveness rather than just about religious practices. But that doesn't really make any sense because baptism can also be used for a form of forgiveness, washing away your sins. So nothing really changed. Speaking of Christianity, an entire game based on it is Binding of Isaac. You most likely heard about this game, but if not, the plot is about a little baby boy called Isaac, and he lived with his mama. While Isaac was drawing and playing with his toys, his mom was watching Christian broadcasts. His mom heard a voice from God saying,
"This child is corrupted by sin and needs to be saved."
and she removes everything that could be sinful, from toys and drawings and even his pants. And then she hears a voice from God again.
"No, this is not enough. Protect him and lock his ass up on his roof."
And which she do that. And then finally, God says to her, yeah, it's just me. Just kill him. Just kill him. To prove your faith, of course. Just prove your faith. And then Isaac escapes into this little trap door, and this is where the player plays. Now, if you're a Jesus freak, you should know that this is based off of the story in the Hebrew Bible called the Binding of Isaac. Crazy that the Bible took inspiration from this game. Well, the story in the Bible is very similar to the plot of the game, where God orders Abraham to sacrifice his son Isaac at Mountain Moriah. But before sacrificing him, the angel of the Lord stops Abraham and says, we straight, as in he's proved his faith. Not only is the plot of Binding of Isaac based on the Bible, but characters, abilities, locations, etc. are as well. Edmund Macmillan, the creator of Binding of Isaac, the game, obviously not the story in the Bible. He grew up in a household of Christians and lived most of his time at his grandmother's, who was very religious. Reason he lived with his grandmother was because of his family having an extremely severe drug and alcohol addiction. This made Edmund feel religious guilt and mental issues, which can explain the insanity that is Binding of Isaac, showing the good part of religion, but also the bad. Some people have called this game blasphemous, specifically a German rating board called USK that gave 16 plus for being exactly that. Blasphemous. I mean, it was gonna be 18 or 16 plus regardless, but for the reason for blasphemy, which I kinda get because of a game inspired by religion, there is a lot of poop. And that's also the cost of having so many games with religious elements. It can spark some controversy, whether it be intentional or not. The baptism scene from Bioshock that I mentioned is just the tip of the religious gaming controversy iceberg, which I just made up right now. The Assassin's Creed series is known for using real historical religions and events for their games. Well, I don't know about the Black Samurai thing. People are still mad at that. I don't get that. But anyway, like the first Assassin's Creed game being based on the Third Crusade, which is the conflict between Christians and Muslims, they presented the events of the Third Crusade in a very respectful way, but some might disagree with how they did it with one of their newer games, Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Valhalla, unlike the other games, takes massive inspiration from Nordic paganism. And then I think, oh, we just had about paganism. Man, shut up, okay? Well, in Valhalla is specifically about the conflict between the early Christians and the Nordic pagans. You play as a Nordic pagan, and since the enemy is the Christians, hey, they make you do some stuff, man. Burn churches, monasteries, and make you steal from Christians to make you progress through the story. And then there's some NPCs who talk shit about Jesus Christ and so forth. This has made people call this game anti-Christian. I think personally, that's a bit of a stretch. I think you can't really, deny history. The cool part of Assassin's Creed is that you can play in these different time periods, and they try to make it accurate as possible. Well, not 100% of the time, but in the end, it's the atmosphere. This is the closest thing you get for a video game about the documented history of this conflict. A good example I can think of is Red Dead 2. I can count on my fingers how many times I've heard a racial slur on Red Dead 2, but at least it's accurate. Now, what about games that had absolute no intention of putting any religious elements? What about even a Nintendo game? What about the greatest game of all time, supposedly, The Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time? If you're a hardcore Nintendo historian, you probably heard about this controversy. Now, the Ocarina of Time you know of is probably not the first version you've played on the Nintendo 64. You see, when the game first released, version 1.0, there was a few differences. First off, there was blood. When you kill Ganon specifically at the end of the game, you can see blood come out, which is sick for a Zelda game, but that ain't very family friendly. This version of Zelda also samples the Quran. When you reach the fire temple in the game, music starts playing, and a part of the track you can hear an Islamic call to prayer chanting. Not only that, but this part of the game where the temple is located is in a sand area called Gerudo Valley, and the original symbol for the Gerudo is literally a star and a moon, which is seen as the symbol of Islam. Now, you're probably thinking, was there a Japanese Muslim brother working at Nintendo back in the 90s? No, they found this chanting on a CD with random sounds and sound effects, and they didn't know it was from the Quran, but they were probably thinking, yeah, sounds brown enough, and put it in. Obviously, later versions, they had to remove it, but not because people will get mad, but because it goes against their policy to use real religions for their games. However, there's actually one forgotten game by Nintendo called Cruisin' World, which was a racing game, and during a level in Egypt, they used the exact same chanting. And when playing, you will still be able to hear this track till this day. But surely this was just like a one-time thing, and they wouldn't do something even more offensive, like putting a swastika. Okay, Kanye West was the level designer for this one. On the third dungeon on the first Legend of Zelda game, there is a level that is designed in a way that looks similar to the one used by the Austrian painter. Well, this symbol in particular actually has a long rich history, used before the guy from World War II. The symbol has another meaning, which means well-being of one's soul. Its origins have been traced around the world, but is mostly known in the Hindu and Buddhist religions. So yeah, the symbol in Zelda isn't about saving Europe or about about Aryan trad wives. It's about peace, love, and prosperity. And oh god, no! Nintendo is not the first gaming company to feature Islamic chanting. We got one of my childhood games I love so very much. LittleBigPlanet. If you don't know, LittleBigPlanet is kind of like the early Roblox for PlayStation. It's a silly 2D platformer where you play as a sack boy with silly physics and you can create and share your levels. LittleBigPlanet also had a story mode, and during the level Swinging Safari, man, come on bro. Music from the level starts playing. And that's where during the point of the track, you can hear the Quran. Sony actually made a statement, unlike Nintendo, and they said, during the review process prior to the release of LittleBigPlanet, it's been brought to our attention that one of the background music tracks licensed from a record label for use in the game contains two expressions that can be found in the Quran. We have taken immediate action to rectify this, and we sincerely apologize for any offense that this may have caused. This ended up making the game have a last-minute delay, and only the ones who got an early copy got the original soundtrack of this level. What if I told you there's even more? During my research, I found the most cursed video. It has the most cursed title uploaded from 13 years ago. And when we click on that video, we see some 4K gameplay of Resident Evil 4. At some point of the video, we see the player die, and during the "You are dead" screen, we hear some Quran chanting. This video, however, was quickly debunked, and this won't happen in the original game, I don't think. Scrolling down to the comments, we see a resemblance of this Tom and Jerry meme. In all seriousness, according to the comments, this was a modified version of an Arabic version of the game. So this is like a third world country copy of Resident Evil 4, where it plays the Quran when you die. It reminds me of those bootleg games you can find in third world countries where it's the most random crossovers, like GTA Dragon Ball Sonic with Mario for the Xbox 360. This is probably the Quran X Resident Evil collab. Speaking of Arabic things, the country of Saudi Arabia has some strict rules when it comes to using the word God, and that comes to any kind of media, because the direct translation for God is Allah, whether it be movies, books, or even video games. That's why for the release of the game Injustice Gods Among Us, they had to change the title to Injustice Mighty Among Us, because if it wasn't changed, it would have been called Injustice Allah Among Us. This made me think, like, what about God of War? Is it Allah of War? Is it called Mighty of War? What did they do then? Well, it is completely banned, actually, in Saudi Arabia, but for violent content, after a 12-year-old boy and a 13-year-old girl allegedly committed suicide after participating in the Blue Whale Challenge. For the ones who don't know, the Blue Whale Challenge is a series of tasks that are provided to participants of the game, and each task gets more and more violent until they end up harming themselves, which is all terrible. And luckily the Blue Whale Challenge is not a thing anymore. But what had that anything to do with God of War? God of War was just one of many games that got banned. They banned 47 games for the same reason. There's also the UAE that also has banned God of War, but that's because of languages and scenes that goes against Islam, which makes at least more sense. Now, a religion we haven't covered yet is Hinduism, and you're probably wondering why you are looking at Fallout 3 footage right now. Well, that's because it is banned in India, but has never publicly stated why that is. People have theorized that it might be because of the game contains two-headed cows called Brahim, and if you didn't know, the cow is a very holy thing in India, so they probably saw that as a form of disrespect. Or it's because Brahim is also the name of the hereditary caste of Hindu priests, but I guess we will never know. Now, what about games that are solely made to push a religious narrative? This brings us to Left Behind Eternal Forces. Left Behind Eternal Forces is a Christian action real-time strategy game developed by Inspired Media Entertainment, and it's about combating the New World Order and also converting people to Christianity. You have weapons in this game and you only can use it if you gotta defend yourself, because if you just shoot a random dude, you lose your faith in the game. So the more people you shoot, the further away you are from God. Obviously, people saw this as a mockery and bigotry of Christianity. It's been criticized and defined as a game that is about killing people for their lack of faith. This is also one of the goofiest game systems I've ever heard. There's also an Islamic game called Islamic Fun. I personally couldn't come up with a better name myself. Islamic Fun is an educational game from 1999 developed by a UK-based firm, Innovative Minds, where you play cute, wholesome Islamic mini games. This website looks so dated. Holy fuck. You got 6 different games to choose from. We got Tree Hop, help the cat retrieve its ball. We got 2 Bunny Race. Which bunny will come... What? Which bunny will cross the finish line first? Building blocks. This is Minecraft if it was good. And then we got... The Resistance. Here is the plot. You are a farmer in South Lebanon who has joined the Islamic resistance to defend your land and family from the invading Zionists. So yeah, that minigame caused some fire, unsurprisingly. The critical reception for this game was not good, claiming that it's raising terrorists and promotes anti-Semitism, and also the game looks like ass. Maybe that's appealing for the jihadi gamers out there. I don't know. Now, a game that looks really like ass is Hanuman Boy Warrior. And the reason it looks like ass is because it's the first PS2 game that is made entirely in India. They know what ass looks like in India. Now, Hanuman is a deity in Hinduism that is a divine monkey god that has a monkey body but a human form. The game was developed by Aurana Technologies and published by Sony, which is a big India W if you ask me. Apparently, this game took 10 months to make, which shows,
Who are you? I am Takshaka.
Rajan Zed, the founder and president of the Universal Society of Hinduism, said Hanuman was not meant to be reduced to just a character in a video game. He tried to get Sony to pull the game from stores, but apparently the game sold too good for them to pull. Rajan Zed is known for criticizing video games for having Hindu elements. Like, for example, he criticized the MOBA game Smite for having Hindu deities. The COO of Hi-Res Studios, the developers of Smite, responded by saying they still will be featuring Hindu deities and probably will be adding more. When the video game website GameSpot asked what about adding Abrahamic characters like Jesus, Moses, Muhammad, etc., he responded by saying they're not interested in character design or gameplay. I mean, to be fair, he kinda right, because have you seen those Hindu gods? They look insane, bro. But playing as Jesus Christ would be pretty cool too, I guess. Rajan Zed also criticized Shin Megami Tensei, you know, the Persona, but without the dating high schoolers part, for having Krishna, the Hindu god. So this Rajan guy is kinda like the Ben Shapiro of Hinduism. Wow. You made it this far of this long ass video. Well, I think that's all the games I want to cover today. This was one of the most deepest rabbit holes I've been in a while, and I hope you were just as invested as I was when making this. I want to thank the Religion and Video Games Wiki, the Censorship Wiki, the Binding of Isaac Wiki, and the Zelda Wiki for the sources of this video. And special thanks to my friend Alan for helping me write this video, and thanks to you for watching all the way through. If you want to see big, chunky, wonky videos like this, or even more on this topic, because this is really interesting, please subscribe, like, all that, you know the deal. And yeah, bye.